This interview is sponsored by TYM Tractors.
Have you always dreamed of owning and working your land? You need just the right tractor. The TYM line of tractors are the toughest and most versatile tractor for all your jobs. Drive your dream. Visit your TYM tractor dealer today. TYM Tractors. The stuff dreams are made of.
Joe, welcome back, buddy.
Tony, what's up, brother?
It's been a minute. So, if you guys don't know that we've missed a couple of shows here. We had, I think Joe had some family deals where a football game was won.
My son had his 6th grade semifinals, I guess you'd say, and then they won the 6th grade championship, undefeated. So
that's awesome. And
yeah,
then
that was a lot of fun.
My claim to fame, I got COVID. So yeah, that's the reason we were out of the loop for a little bit, because both of us were just not, I just wasn't up to it. I didn't feel like doing it. But anyway.
No, so for those of you that don't know Tony's not much of a complainer. He likes to talk, but he doesn't complain a whole lot. And when Tony says he's got a splitting headache and he doesn't think he could do the live, at first I thought it was like, is that April 1st? But
yeah,
you went down hard, man. But I'm glad you're feeling better.
I feel a lot better. I will say this: it felt like you were standing on my chest. That was a little intense for me. Got some antibiotics.
So just a light little pressure.
Just a light little pressure of big fella standing on my chest. That's why I woke up. The fever was horrible. I literally passed out in the shower, and Tanya had to eat me out of the shower. That was pretty entertaining, but yeah, the fever passed, and then I got the chest part, and yeah, but I survived.
And I survived.
I survived.
Well, and that's a good segue at some point here of what we're going to talk about today. But
yeah,
anything happened on the farm? You putting some windows in the cabin? I saw.
Yeah, put some windows in the cabin. We're back at the cabin, working out pretty hard now. So that's all. That's pretty much what's going to happen. The weather, we're getting some of that cool weather. I think tomorrow's supposed to be in the 70s. So yeah, that's going to be wonderful. I love to work.
Me too.
Love the cabin. Just our whole premise of our homestead is kind of what our subject matter is tonight about.
Right.
A little bit. I always say I'm not a prepper, but I am.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that when you think about a homestead, right? Like a lot of folks here in the comments see Kevin's here, Dr. Jesus, Wheeler Farm,
hey,
Van Sid, Joe from North Carolina. Joe, I hope you're doing well, brother. I hope you guys are okay. Kevin Fee, Colton Bullard. These are all our buddies, man. And today we're going to talk about if you're on a homestead, the grocery store may not be so close. You may not have a Walmart or Tractor Supply or Rural King or something close.
Right.
And I think part of what draws a lot of us to homesteading is self-sufficiency and, kind of even going back to how primitive people used to live, right? How people used to take care of themselves and not always look for someone else to take care of them or look to the government to bring you something or, so it's neighbors taking care of neighbors. And tonight we're going to talk a lot about different things that I have bought over the years. Tony has a lot of military experience and a lot of training that, he could lend a lot of really valuable insight in this. And then I would love for people in the comment section also, if you think of something, then, throw it in here because this is how we all get stronger and get better. So,
yeah, we're neither one of them, Joe or myself, neither one are experts in preparing or emergency preparedness. I mean, we both, so you guys definitely kick in, and we really appreciate that because it's easy. This is how we all learn together. But hey, I got the whole thing was 10 things, but let's start off with 5 things that a homesteader should have. What are your top 5 things? And
well, I'm going to work off a list tonight.
I
hope that's
okay.
I'm
going to dig into each one of those now. So don't think you're getting off easy. It's just because you named 5 of them off. We're going to dig in each one of them. And you guys let the commenters if you let the commenters begin. So they're gonna question you as well.
Well, and I actually tonight have a very, very, very nice giveaway. It's a very generous giveaway that we're going to be doing. So I'm excited about that. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, though. So really the top 5 things I think most of us would think, and if I miss anything, again, you guys, hop in there. And Dr. Jesus said tractor. Yeah, that's one of the top 5 things you need.
Gotta have tractor.
I think that on any homestead, you're going to need to plan for water, clearly shelter. And that's if, you're stranded somewhere, or if you're buying a piece of property and you're going to need to build some kind of shelter like you're doing with the cabin, you need a place to get out of the elements to stay alive. Food, security, and some kind of power source, right? Some kind of way to, let's face it, we need to charge our phones, charge our tools. I know that you use a lot of electric tools like I do.
Right.
And,
right.
Man, they're just so easy, and having ways to recharge them is important.
I know the order obviously is always going to be water, food, and then shelter. That's a given and pretty much survivability. But power has, our lights are not like they were 200 years ago. So not having power is it drastically alters our life. And so, there's so many new things now, like solar generators and stuff. And talk me through what your thoughts are on power, and then we'll go back and hit the again. I don't want to undermine how important the first 3 are, because those are the first 3, and there always will be the first 3. But I'm watching these videos on like North Carolina right now, and North Georgia and East Tennessee, and the people have no power lines. They have no roads, because in the mountains, all of the roads go to the bottom, the valley, and then the roads got washed away. So they still are. There's so many people out there that their houses are intact, but their backup power sources like generators and stuff are gone, and they're losing the ability to like charge their cell phone. Something as simple as that. So anyway,
well, I think I think more than anything, all of these things are important. We've got some time here to talk through these things, and I think that we're not going to prioritize. Obviously, we know water, food, shelter are the most important, right? Those are going to keep you alive no matter what. But I think morale is also important. If you're going to be on your homestead, and we were talking earlier about folks in North Carolina that they may be unaffected on the top of a mountain, but there's no way to get down the mountain. So how do you survive up there with what you have? And
no power.
I think yeah, and the morale thing is big. You guys, most of you that watch our channel know, which if you don't, Joe the Farmer, would love to have you. Be sure to go to Facebook and subscribe there too. We're not charging for memberships this week, so everything's free. And Tony's Tractor Adventure, if anyone's new here and hasn't seen our channels. But on our channel, I have 3 kids, and I really, that prepping gene, or that preparedness gene, I should say, which is probably a little more appropriate, it didn't really hit me until my first child was born, right? And that's when it was like, boom, like it was game time. And everything from that point in time of being a father made this stuff so much more important to me. And I kind of went into hyper mode of like, okay, let me think of scenarios. Let me think of ways that I can protect this child, because that is my job. Holly can take care of herself. She's obviously, I'd lay down my life for that woman, but she's fully capable. These children can't. And one of the things that was super important, clearly, is light, right? Like if the lights, I remember the lights went out one time and all 3 kids start crying. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've done a terrible job of preparing them. So let's talk about lighting. Let's talk about some very simple, cheap stuff. Now, also, I've asked Tony to share. I have a link to our Amazon store. I've said this on the channel before. I have no idea where that money goes. I know we're supposed to earn commissions on it. It may be somewhere one day. Maybe I'll find it. Maybe Holly's spending it on stuff and I just don't know. But y'all are welcome to use our link, or you can use some other link. But this makes things very convenient and very easy. So hop out of there, Tony. I don't want to share too much of it just yet, but I'll put the link there. Don't go giving away all the secrets just yet. But this is something I absolutely love, right? So if at the end of this video, if you guys spent $100, you don't have to use my link. You don't have to use anything.
This is not a ploy to make money.
This is not at all. As a matter of fact, I told Tony I was kind of hesitant to share these things because you kind of feel silly doing some of this stuff, but like I like knowing that I have these bases covered. So this thing.
Let me say this before you start, because we both. He's like, I don't really normally share this kind of stuff, and then when we start talking, like we both have the exact same stuff.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of our viewers are going to be just like us.
I think so too. And I think that part of this, when you put yourself out there and you start, building a community and investing in that community, I think it's our responsibility to share this stuff with each other. So, we need to do it. But $15 on Amazon, and this thing is phenomenal. It's 4 different light bulbs. I have one right here. They're plastic. They're super lightweight. They're LED. They take 3 AAA batteries. And all you do is, this little carabiner clip, you can hang it from something, and you just push a little button. You have different ways of or different colors or tones, I guess you'd say.
Right.
You can hang this, like if you have a ceiling fan in the house and the power goes out, you hang that from the ceiling fan, the entire room has light. And
that thing will run to comfort your kids for sure.
Absolutely. And if you look at and you and the children, all the children.
And me and the children.
That's right. And if you ever look at statistics of how light can affect security, and I did see in there, someone wants to talk about personal protection, Wayne. I'm with you, Wayne. We're going to talk about that. Don't worry.
Yeah. That's there.
But light will stop a threat very quickly because people don't like to be seen. If there's dark, it's easy to do things in the dark, but light is a great security thing. So for $15, it even comes with the batteries. So you get a set of batteries in here, 12 batteries for the 4 lights, and this will last pretty much through the night. They're fantastic. Everyone says get a flashlight.
LEDs, I imagine they would last several days.
And that's one thing I was going to say also is, as far as power goes, is that something like this, like a little strip, you could charge AA's, AAA's. Batteries are extremely expensive right now, so I would encourage you to get something like that where you can recharge them. And the more we talk about some of the power stuff, you could have light pretty much indefinitely. And imagine, you're hit by a storm or a hurricane or natural disaster or hardship or whatever it is. And at least that your lighting is covered, right? So I did a video not too long ago. I'm just showing you guys, this is like Oprah, Joe's favorite things.
Yeah.
So we all have these things, right? This one's seen some things, it's
there's been around a day.
That's right. But I absolutely love this thing. So I have probably 20 of these things all over the place. And if you hook that thing in, you turn it on, and now all of a sudden you have light on one side, you have a 110, and you have 2 USB. So you can charge your phone, you can give yourself light, you can plug in something that's very low, maybe like a lamp or something.
Sure.
So anyway, not to go super down the rabbit hole with products, but like these are 2 things I found that I absolutely love. I've also put an inverter on there on our Amazon store that's, you could hook up to a car battery. There's lots of different things you can do for power. But I think that some of these
Wheeler Farm said here, it says, that stuff also
absolutely
you're making it safer, because candles are awesome, but what happens when a kid knocks a candle over?
Yeah, 100%.
Then you go from one horrible, one emergency to another emergency.
Right, 100%. And lead chuckers, Vance, we're going to get to those. Dual fuel generator, I say absolutely. I think that there's even tri-fuel generators that will go off of. Isn't that right? They go off of
natural gas, propane,
or right. Yeah. So I think. It goes back to the expression 2 is 1 and 1 is none, right?
Right.
So have a backup plan. That's one of the reasons I like that light bulb kit, because it's 4 of them, right? If 3 of them fail, you still have 1. And let's see, tornadoes are a mess. Our buddy Daniel, who's Daniel Arms, I was talking to him when we were in Atlanta together, and just the stories he was telling me about the tornado damage they have. They're going to be cleaning up for well over a year. But great point on safer than candles. And Smitty8202 says, "Hey Joe, I see you replaced your AirPods." Well, I replaced the left one. I never found it in the middle of a field. Our buddy Hank actually was watching, and he said, "Hey, I see your AirPod laying there." I was like, "No, you don't." All right, let's talk about our giveaway for tonight. So this is super nice, and a lot of you guys know I have a relationship with my channel. A channel partner of ours is Massimo Power Sports. So Massimo makes the T-Boss. We have a T-Boss 550. We're going to be demoing the T-Boss 1000 on the channel soon. I have it. There's a story behind that. I'll get into that in one of the videos. The Jeeps are Massimo's. So Massimo makes some great stuff. Really, really like the Massimo stuff. But they also have an electric line. They have golf carts and all kinds of stuff. And they also make these little power generators.
Right.
So this is a 300 watt little power thing. And I asked the folks in Mossimo if they'd be willing to give one of these away to someone on the live, and they said they would. So I don't know what this thing costs, probably 150, 200 bucks, but these things are worth their weight in gold. I use them all the time. So full disclosure, you guys are my friends. Go ahead.
We use them. We use them, not necessarily that particular brand, but we use solar generators all over. And that's just a little mini solar generator. You put a solar panel.
It is. Yeah, you can hook a solar panel up to it. It is
unlimited power.
Right. And they make these, actually, I haven't done any videos on them because we're still trying to figure out how they want to really present that, but we'll talk about that another time. But these things, I've had them for probably 3 or 4 months, actually probably 6 months, and I use them literally all the time. Every live we've done, I have the computer and everything plugged into one of the larger ones here on the floor in front of me. So they make a 300 watt, which we're going to give away to someone tonight. And then I even brought down the 500 watt, which is a bigger one. And again, these things have light. You push that and light comes on. So you could charge your phone. Oh, it gets brighter. And then I think there's a blinking setting on there too, but I don't think I can see anymore after just doing that. So
with that in a solar panel, just say, so a 100 watt solar panel, probably a 50 watt solar panel would really do wonders with that particular unit right there. You would have the ability to charge cell phones, batteries, because like your little AA and AAA battery charger. Well, that's got to have power from somewhere. Well, just that solar panel and that item right there, you've got a power source that doesn't need fuel, and then you can, walkie talkies. You're going to need batteries. Those are only going to last as long as you have a power source. So, and that's where we were talking about the people in North Carolina right now. A lot of those people were preppers in a way. They had generators, and they live in the mountains, so obviously power lines go down during storms. But in this case, it just basically destroyed the entire infrastructure. So they had some backup power with like backup gasoline. Well, once those gasoline generators run out of gasoline, there are literally no roads to go to town and get gasoline. And that's where I think these things have really come into their own. These solar generators, I'm a big believer in them now. I was skeptical at first. I think they come of age.
Well, and it's funny because I was talking to one of our peers who we've actually had on the show, and he and I were talking about these little solar, power generator things. And he's like, man, every time I get an email from someone offering to do a video on one of these things, he's like, I could think of 1,000 things I use it for already. So it's hard to say no, and it's hard to say like, no, don't send me one to tinker with and use and to have another source of power on the farm that I could share with others. Some of them are really expensive. Yeah, these are not lithium ion. No, these are lithium ion. These are not the lithium phosphate, LiPo.
Lithium iron phosphate.
Right. So these are not lithium iron phosphate, but these
there's
are
benefits to that. There's benefits to that. So the lithium phosphate, what you have there is lighter, but it carries more power density.
This is lithium ion. This is not lithium phosphate.
All right, so
I just don't want to confuse it.
Yeah, it was lithium ion, but it's lighter. And it's not going to last as long as the lithium iron phosphate will. However, that's an emergency thing. It's going to last you for a year. So, I mean, surely we're going to have, we hope to be over whatever disaster we're going to be going through in a year.
Right.
So it's not like if you use it every day, it's still going to be very viable.
Well, and this thing is going to go, I mean, I love it has a handle on it. And again, I'm not trying to sell you guys stuff. I mean, we're giving one of these away. So you guys there's tons of these things are probably all made in the same exact factory. I mean, I think we probably all know that, but
sure.
I like this. I haven't seen one this small that it's like a lunchbox, and I love it as a handle. This is going to go to my deer stand with me this year, and I'm going to be able to charge everything. And I'm actually going to bring one of the little solar panels.
You going to plug in your heated underwear?
Maybe. Why you want? I thought you asked me if you could borrow them this year.
Hey, listen, I'm not ashamed. Hey, so be prepared. Hashtag be prepared. Let's go ahead and let everybody know about that.
Hashtag be prepared. I think Lo Rivera was asking for the hashtag, so thank you for reminding us of that.
Yeah, hashtag be prepared. That's going to be the one for today. and just type that in exactly the way I just put it up there, and then we'll do a giveaway here. And I thank you for being so generous, and thank you for Massimo for that's very generous giveaway.
Man, they're amazing people. There's times where people like to give the whole must be nice working with somebody, but I like to surround myself with cool people and people that have a like interest, and they're really good people. And I think that they make products that make sense.
People are definitely interested in that one.
Yeah, I would be too. Trust, and I'm telling you all, I have zero reason to I have nothing to sell. Like if you buy 1,000 of these things, I get nothing out of it.
Right.
I just think I use them literally all the time. And usually if I'm editing videos, I have my laptop plugged into it because there's no plug next to where my chair is, and I'm constantly using them. So we did have a couple, let's see, most solar generators won't run a refrigerator. That is true, unless you get a very big one. And I believe Tony has one that he's going to be doing something on soon that probably will run a refrigerator.
Right. Absolutely. Yes. So I have one literally under my desk right now. I don't want to take it. If I unplug it, my computer will shut off.
There goes the show.
Show's over. But I literally weld it. I plug my welder up. I have a 110 welder, and I was able to weld with it. And again, you're out. If you're out there working and you need power, things still happen. And you still want to be able to weld. You still want to do all the things you want to do on your homestead. I'm really getting big into solar. I think I don't think it's cost effective to get into solar just to say.
You moving to California?
No.
Are you buying a Tesla?
No.
What's happening here, Tony?
I'm just saying that I think it's viable for being prepared. Because yes, it's not cost effective to run 100% solar all the time. It's still cheaper here in Tennessee to run, grid electricity, and it would basically never pay itself off. But whenever the power goes out and my power stays on, it's pretty good.
Well, like Wheeler Farm said, I mean, dual fuel generator. I don't know why you wouldn't want to have gasoline. You wouldn't want to have solar. And again, they're getting a lot cheaper. I know that when they first came out, and I'm not going to sit here and try and dog a company, so please don't take this that way. But I've seen 4 Patriots advertises a lot, and that's expensive for what it is. You're paying for a lot of advertising. You can get something a lot cheaper for that kind of money. But really, as far as power goes, that's kind of it. I do have EDC stuff. I have this little flashlight, which I think was $10. I use it all the time. And I like that it has a little rubber thing on the end so you don't blind anything. And I usually have this in my bow harness because if I'm getting out of a stand or something, I can just kind of look around real quick and then turn it off. And I like having the tactile kind of push. And also I have this on there in case if you drop it. So anyway. So flashlight.
We went through power pretty strong. I right now, like I said, our life's wrapped around power. We communicate. We don't live next to each other. We used to. Communities were very small and very condensed in small areas, and you come into a hub town to get your information. We don't live that way anymore. So when our cell phones don't work, or our internet doesn't work because we don't have power, it's a big deal. And right now, the first thing that they did in North Carolina was went up and set up these temporary cell phone towers all over the place so that people can still communicate. But if you don't have a way to charge your cell phone, you can't. You lose that communication.
Right. Well, and that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up because a cell phone is, if you could charge your cell phone, you have light, you have communication, you have entertainment, you have connectivity without without Wi-Fi. All right, you have satellite, and even some of the newer phones will have emergency cellular on them too. So that's a really good point. I mean, you have a family sitting around and you guys want to watch a show, or just again that morale thing, right? You can't sit there in the grind of an emergency the entire time. And Wheeler Farm, you're right. Harbor Freight, they may sell them too. We don't have a Harbor Freight very close to us, so I don't go to Harbor Freight a whole lot. I do check out their website. I know Tony, you do a bunch with them.
I love Harbor Freight has a brand there, but their Harbor Freight I think he said it warranties 90 days. but what I can't remember the name of the brand, but they actually warranty their own product. So it's not just a 90-day warranty for that that solar stuff. Now, Harbor Freight does have some solar stuff, and I think for overall, it's I know there's a lot of people would love to have it right now.
Yeah, and Kevin's right. CBs, having a CB radio would be great. I know,
big time.
I think who's your handyman said he was talking about what is it? Ham radio. He was talking about ham radio.
What, ham radio?
And then there you go. I like it.
Yeah. So this is a little cheap radio. It's a ham radio. To operate this right now, you legally have to get your license to operate it. You have to go through training for it. However, in what we call the shift event, that all goes out the window.
Right.
You're going to call somebody for some help. These things have tremendous range compared to a standard walkie-talkie, and so that's
and he has Starlink too. I wonder how. Wade, tell us what you think of Starlink. Sorry to cut you off, Tony.
No, that's good. Yeah, I love the Starlink thing.
Do you actually Starlink too?
No, I'm not, but I will. At the farm, when we move out there, we will go Starlink because we do not have adequate internet. The closest we don't even have internet out there. We'd have to use cell phone internet.
Right.
And all things considered, it's very much a good. We have good internet. It's very fast phone, but Starlink is obviously what we're going to have with being a social media channel.
Yeah. Great point by Wayne. Cash. Yeah, you should have cash. Folks can't use a credit card or debit with no power. You're 100% right. And La Rivera is 100% right. Be prepared to barter and trade.
Yes.
There are, barter and trade. I think sometimes when we think about this stuff again, being prepared or preparing for an emergency, I think
there's money right there.
That's right. Yeah. Money in the bank right there. But
right there,
I
money.
think that you have to be an optimist to be prepared. You know what I mean? You have to think like, we can get through this, we got this, not like despair, like, oh, I guess it's gonna become Mad Max, So
what we call,
yes.
Well, I'm sorry, I mean to cut you up, but what we call prepared now is the way people just used to live. They prepared their entire life. I remember my grandparents, they went through like the 34 flood and they were displaced. And so they stayed from that point on, they stayed prepared every year. They canned food every year. They put up food. They call it putting it back. Right.
Right.
They lived as preppers because they were prepping to put enough food and resources to last them the entire year until next year came around when they started all over again.
Right. Unknown says DIY solar backup just for making coffee. Charger stuff is amazing. You're 100% right. And a lot of folks don't know this. So when I had my old truck, actually, I think my new one's like this too. The 110 outlets in the trucks, even the 2500s, I think it only does up to 400 watts. Maybe it's 600, but you can't power a coffee pot with that.
See, if you get a Ford, they have 2,000 watt.
Yeah, but I mean, if you have a Chevy or GMC, you can drive it someplace and actually get a cup of coffee.
Oh, we're going to go there. Okay.
Well,
listen, I can make coffee, dude.
That's right. I got coffee. Come pick me up.
Yeah, come pick me up. My truck's broke.
Yeah, Dale Wallace makes a great point too. So as we're talking about power, gas generator had a bad gas. You have to use non-ethanol, and you have to put stable or a fuel stabilizer in it.
Absolutely. That is probably that is the most key thing. So many people make the biggest mistake made with lawnmowers and generators are they'll put ethanol gas in it and park it, leave it over the winter without stable in it, and it will not start. I put stable in everything. I go out in the spring, start my weed eaters up. They crank every time, and then I go one step further on my generators. I use stable, but I generally start my generators at least once every quarter.
So it's funny because I have, part of my channel, it's tractors really, and side by sides is a big part of what we do. And I have a lot of what you probably consider more value machines, a lot of Tractor Supply specific machines. And I get a lot of messages from people, and it's heads or tails, right? It's either, hey, these machines are awesome. Why don't other people know about it? And then some are like, my carburetor was garbage and the fuel injector only lasted me, through one season. And they kind of go through those things. And I think a lot of it comes back down to fuel.
Oh,
If
yeah,
you're using
absolutely.
clean fuel and start the thing once in a while, especially
Absolutely.
generators that just sit. And who's your handyman? 100% agree. Seafoam is my favorite also. I use Seafoam in all my gas engines. I use Howes and anything that's diesel. And
I'm a
worked
big
out
I'm
really
a
well.
big Lucas fan, but honestly, the formulas are almost exactly the same.
Probably. All right, so let's move on. I think we've
Yeah. I was going to say we got to get water.
right. So water is a big one.
That's the number one. I mean, that is the number one thing to think about when everything goes south. That's the first thing you need to think about.
Right. Yeah.
Anybody
So
disagree with that? Yeah.
What do you think? While we're waiting on that, what do you do for water, to prepare for water?
Well, first off, you got to. I look at everything through my military training, and we have water tablets. You can take a dirty sock, or preferably a clean sock or a clean T-shirt, pour some water through it, filter out as much organics as you can, and then throw one of those pills in it, and it tastes like crap, but you can live. So that the water pills are priceless in a real, down and out kind of emergency where you're stranded without a water source, because you can just you can get some water out of a mud hole and filter it good enough to drink it. Then obviously this kind of leads into our next video that we're going to talk about next week, is how to buy a homestead land. What are you looking for? And I think having a water source like your place has got how many millions of gallons of water in your pond? That's priceless.
I've done the math before, and we have, and listen, a big part of why we bought that property when we did was, I shouldn't say why we did, but a huge selling factor is we have multiple wells and we have 2 million gallons of water behind the cabin that we can, that the spring fed. And, that there's also, in a time of hardship, there's a whole lot of fish in there. You can eat fish. Hey, we'll surf and turf, baby. We'll do some venison, a little crappie on the side. It'd be nice.
So I've got another, this is how nerded out I am. I have a steel, only for making, denatured water.
Nothing sure.
Yeah, nothing else, just for denatured water. But
so when he says steel, he means a still for other people in the country.
Yeah, for like, if you listen, all people in Tennessee know what I was talking about. Some people have been known to make some moonshine through those things, but reality is you can go on Amazon and buy a stainless steel made steel with copper lines, reasonably cheap, probably in the 300. And as long as you have wood and a way to make a fire, you're going to have purified water, unlimited sources of purified water.
Yeah.
And that comes into, what happens in the injury. Who said something?
I thought he was talking about a chainsaw, to be honest. That's why I thought I'd clarify for
Oh yeah.
I speak Tony, y'all.
Yeah.
We're only a couple hours. We're both in Tennessee. We're only a couple hours away, but
yeah. He understands what I'm saying. But yeah, that's one thing for water. And then obviously there's some people said something about the straws. I have some of those, and those are great for emergencies. Yeah. Life straws. Those are absolutely amazing to have. It's not only for, emergencies, but if you're going on out west and you're going hunting off grid, you just don't know. A quick story. We were doing me and a buddy were doing some pretty intense hiking, and we got back in the woods and ran out of water and got dehydrated. It was like 95 degrees. This was I was quite a bit younger and a little bit more ambitious in my outdoorsmanship, and got to the point where we get dehydrated, come across the stream, and we had our straws, and we would literally, clean water up. It wasn't, those weren't straws. I had a little pump thing. Anyway.
That's the Sawyer. Sawyer makes a great one that you can pump with.
But, and I would literally sitting on the side of the stream. That probably saved our life. I'm not gonna lie. It was 95 degrees. We're in the middle of this big valley, and there's just this one little water source there, and we were probably 5 or 6 miles of pretty hard hiking to get back out.
And if you would have drank water from that stream and it had Giardia or something in there, you would have died. You would not have survived that.
Yeah, because
you're already dehydrated, and then next thing you know, you're
dehydrating again.
You're going out your you got a leak in the O-ring. But real quick, I want to talk about Life Straw. Tony talked about these again. Yep. I have zero affiliation. Tony has zero affiliation. These are things that we've bought. This bag, and I've had this probably in my emergency storage for probably 4 or 5 years. Every Black Friday, Amazon Prime does a deal on these. So keep an eye out. You know, if you don't have one now, go ahead and get one. And this weighs maybe 3 ounces. I have one in each of my cars. And I have one in a go bag in case you ever needed to bring something. It's silly not to have it, to be quite honest. And these things go on clearance for like under $10 a piece during Amazon Prime days. So if you don't have one, go ahead and get one to have it. Because again, I think this will filter. It says it'll filter 264 gallons of water, which is a lot of water for this little light thing. And removes 99.
A lot of days.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's typically 1 gallon of water per person per day is what you need to survive. So that's almost a year's worth of water if you're doing it just for drinking it. But it takes out Giardia, it takes out E. coli, all the things that can kill you. Because again, if you're dehydrated and you start drinking stream water, you're probably done. So, but I did want to show. All right, so Tony and his White Lightning. Yeah, Kevin says rain barrels, 100%. Triple boil
rain.
Water.
That's a good point. Yeah, rain. That is because rain is already clean, but it's still, you don't have to treat it as much as long as you have a good rain collection system.
Right.
Like when you've got water going down a creek, you don't know that the raccoon didn't just poop in it just up
right.
Right. So
that's why, I mean, like this kind of stuff it's so cheap right now. And again, I know money's not easy to come by right now, so I'm not trying to spend everybody's money, but for $10 to have that will pretty much last forever. Get one for everyone in your household because you don't want to all be slurping off the same straw. It's kind of gross. And you start thinking about that kind of stuff. And if you have a rain barrel, and you don't have a way to boil it, you don't really have any ways to do that. You could just get a bucket and all drink out of that bucket with your own individually marked straw, and you're fine. So, Marty Henderson, how are you doing, my friend? Good to see you.
I want to point out one thing real quick. This video was supposed to come out 2 weeks ago, and I just thought it was so ironic that we posted this and then postponed it till today, and that all that has happened, not only, there's been a lot happened since this. Let's just kind of talk about that for a minute. That hurricane come through and just created huge devastation. And then for you guys that are probably not, I don't know if you're keeping up with the news or not, but right now there's a lot of tension in the Middle East right now. There's some war drums being beat, and so I don't want to like fear monger, but I think to be responsible leaders of your house, you need to be prepared. Does that make sense?
I think it makes a lot of sense. And I thought you were going to talk about the massive worker strike we have on the East Coast right now, where we're going to have a lot of goods and services that won't be coming in, and costs could go up. So, as we talk about water, because I do want to talk about costs going up, because there's something we're doing that I think is, and I know you do also, but this is another thing. I can't remember what this costs. This is all on the Amazon link. I've had this. I think I've had this for 10 years. I'm not kidding.
I'm going to make this big, so throw that up there where they can see it.
Yeah. So this thing is they call them water bobs. This one's probably a knockoff one of them. This will hold 100 gallons of water. I think it's $10. And what you do is, like, if you're like my friend, Joe from Joe's Outdoor Experience, you live in North Carolina, or a hurricane's coming, you take this thing, you take the $10, go find a bathtub in your house, and you fill this up with water from your bathtub, and then you have a little thing that you can pump the water out. So I remember when I was, younger, we'd have a store and we'd fill like pots and pans and stuff like that. And like, this is just, it's 100 gallons of clean water. It's not going to be touching your bathtub and everything. It's in a big bladder. And then you can pull the water out of here. Even if you still use the life straw to drink the water, if you feel like you need to do that, but if it's tap water, you're probably fine. Sometimes water gets contaminated and you'll have burn or boil bans and stuff where you're not allowed to use the water. I just think that these things, again, when you look at the way it's designed, it's super cheap. This thing is, I bought it once and I think I have.
100 gallons would keep a family in water for a good month if they rationed it.
It comes back to morale, right? So now you can wash your hands. You can put some water in the back of the toilet if you need to, which you can actually drink that too in the tank. And it's just, water's important. And let's also remember, most of you have at least 50 gallons of water in your house, and that's in your water heater. So if you ever have a bad enough experience, you could drain water from your water heater. If there's ever contamination, shut off your water supply, but then you can use the water in your water heater to either drink or pour in the back of the toilet to flush, stuff like that. So,
yeah, I remember in certain situations where we literally dipped pans or glasses of water out of the back of the toilet. It sounds gross, but that water in that toilet tank
it's fresh water. There's
fresh
nothing wrong
water
with it. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with it. Unless you're like, my grandma, she put that big blue puck in there and all the water was blue in the toilet. Don't drink that blue water. That's not good for you.
Blue water's not good for you. All right, so I think we got water covered pretty good. What about non-perishable foods? This is one of our off camera talk. We talk about this a lot. So,
we do. We
both got into freeze drying and
So I bought a freeze dryer, I think probably about the same time you did. It was about 2.5 years ago.
Right.
And
it went up a lot.
Yeah. They've gone. Well, actually, the prices stayed about the same. I think I bought mine when it was about what it is. You got yours a little bit earlier, so yours.
Yeah, because mine, like right after I bought mine, like literally 2-3 weeks later, it jumped pretty significantly. I got pictures. Tell me when I can show the pictures, man.
Okay, I'll tell you. So this is something that a lot of folks probably think we're nuts. Like, why would you buy a freeze dryer? You're crazy. This is a little off the reservation, but think about it this way. So years ago, I would buy freeze dried food because I'm in the outdoors a lot. We would actually use it, but also for food storage. This is something I think that we should have as insurance for our families. Most of us spend thousands of dollars a year in insurance for our cars, for our homes, for our tractors, any of those things. And this is the kind of thing where all of that stuff is completely worthless if you don't have food. We've already talked about water. And then when you start to think about, how do you do this? Well, buying it used to be pretty reasonable. I would buy number 10 cans of like ground beef or chili mac and beef and stuff. And a 10-pound, the number 10 cans are about like, it's like a big commercial grade, soup can basically. And those would be $20-$25. I looked last night because I knew we were going to have this discussion, and that same can is now $100 for one can of ground beef. Now, one can of ground beef isn't going to go very far, but it's $100. So my smaller freeze dryer, I think I paid $2,300 for it, which is a lot of money. I know.
Sure, absolutely.
But
it recoups very quickly.
100%. And you guys know I just went to Kentucky. I shot a little deer because I'm a knucklehead. But if you want to pull those pictures up real quick, Tony, I have a new freeze dryer, which I'm going to be doing some stuff with Harvest Right. And that so the black one on the left is the one I bought. The one on the right, I call that. Yeah, we both have the black one. I call the one on the right Big Sheila because that thing is. You're
so politically incorrect.
Oh my gosh, that thing's a hoss. It is so big that my entire Kentucky deer that I did in ground venison, it has 7 trays, and I was only able to use 5 of the trays because I ran out of venison. So I put together, that's all freeze dried venison right there. So it almost feels like styrofoam. But when you reconstitute it with water, and that white stuff is just, that's just some of the fat. Yeah, it's just fat. That's right. but yeah, it feels almost like a styrofoam, but you reconstitute it with water. And listen, it's not going to taste exactly as it was. However, um, it tastes fantastic. It's 95% of nutrition. If you're going to put this in tacos or spaghetti or soup or stew, like it's great. And this is one of the things right here that I have, and this should
Is that
last
what that
me.
is?
That's what it is. You can hear. I don't know. Hold on. You hear that?
Yep.
That's me kind of just shaking around because it's actually hard in here, and this could last 20 years,
Right.
or more if it's kept in a dark, dry place.
Right.
All of
Do
the
you not
things
use
are.
Mylar, or do you always use jars? I use Mylar bags.
I have Mylar bags. I'll use Mylar for things that are. So this is. I want this. I want to see it because I want to use it. So what I'm going to try and do is this would probably be fine 20 years from now. However, um, for quality purposes, I'll probably use this within the next couple of years. Right. So this will go in the cabinet. It doesn't have to be refrigerated. This can just go on the counter. Really, you want it kind of in a cool, dark place. But that will give me healthy protein through any situation. Doesn't have to be refrigerated again. And
Everything you need to survive right there in the can.
Absolutely. And Tony's
the
carnivore,
carnivore.
man. That's right. And just to show you guys something too, which is super cool, I have a friend of mine that he's raising a bunch of chickens, and that is something I can't wait to get into once my kids get a little bit older. But we're raising kids right now, and this powder, this is farm fresh eggs.
Yes, we got tons of that.
And this will last, again, this will last 20, 25 years. It does not taste the same. It tastes good. You can make an omelet or something like that.
It tastes like army eggs.
Well,
it does.
And I haven't had army eggs because I didn't serve. But
quite a few.
We appreciate your service, Tony.
Thank you. I should get an award for that. No, it's not bad. It's not bad.
Well, but this is the thing: baking. You're not going to take, like, if you just eat straight eggs, it's one thing. And I will want, if I'm hungry, 100% will eat that.
Absolutely.
But
I've eaten it. I've reconstituted them, tried it. I would eat it all day long. Yeah.
The kids ate it. Like, that's usually kind of the thing.
Some Texas Pete, you'll be fine.
That's right. All right, real quick, let's run over to the comments. Apple cinnamon flavored calorie bars, 72 hours sawdust cubes, chili mac MREs. Man, MREs are nasty. I've eaten them and they are just not good.
Yeah.
Tomato sauce, dry sausage.
Lots of chemicals in them. So how long does that dehydrated meat last? So
there's two answers to that. In my house, not very long, but in long-term storage, the concern would be if it would go rancid, and the only thing that would make it go rancid would be oxygen and moisture. If there's no oxygen and moisture in there, you're perfectly fine. And this was it was canned. I have a little $20 thing that you put on the top. It sucks all the air out and you'll hear the thing pop. But I also put an oxygen absorber in there that if it's meat, just for extra safety.
Yeah. This is how we do ours. We dehydrate it. We use Mylar bags because it's fine to put them in jars, but if that jar is exposed to light, then it increases the likelihood that bacteria is going to grow inside. So Mylar keeps it dark and lets it be very portable, which it's a lot more portable in the Mylar bag versus a jar. However, I like the jars stack well, and you can see what's in it. There's benefits for both, but we take the meat, put it in the bag, and then we put our oxygen these little things you buy. You can buy them by 1,000 at a time for $15. I don't remember. You put it in there, and they take the moisture out and the oxygen out. Zip, you put it through a little what do you call it? Where you
impulse sealer?
Yeah, you melt the ends together like a potato chip bag and throw it in. And what we do is we have totes, and so we're working on this tote is for this year, right? So once this tote gets full, we'll put this year in number one. And then when we go to we may only do 6 totes a year. But we went back now 2 years ago and pulled meat out. And I'll tell you, don't forget to tell this story. I'll tell you a secret about how to prepare some meat. But we've pulled meat out 2 years later and, rehydrated it, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think that there's a lot of value to that. And in that example, You know, when I was in Kentucky, I paid the processor. He was expensive because it's, you know, it's you're traveling and you really have no option. It was like $150 to have the whole deer processed and steaks and ground. So here in Tennessee, if I do it myself, I've got a grinder. It doesn't cost anything. But if I have someone do it, it's probably about $100. You get 50, you know, say 40, 50 pounds of meat off of a deer. You know, we'll say 30 of it's ground. So at $100 per number 10 can, which is probably about what this is. I did 17 of these off that Kentucky deer. So that's $1,700 in freeze dried food for an investment in a freeze dryer. Yes. That big one is expensive. That's, I think it retails, they sell that one at Tractor Supply, and I think it's like $4,800, something like that. But again,
but with a big family, you're going to recoup that fast.
Well, and you're going to be able to prep pretty fast too. And what I would suggest doing is that if you have an interest in this kind of stuff, reach out to me, because I geek out about these kinds of things, because I think cheap is expensive. I've said that on the channel many times. And just going and buying this stuff doesn't really teach you how to prepare it. And also, you're going to get a ton of preservatives. You're going to get a ton of salt, a ton of things you don't necessarily want to eat, right? So what I would say is that XL, I would go in on it with a couple families. Right. I would get maybe 2 or 3, maybe even 4 like-minded families together. Let everyone buy their own set of trays. A set of those 7 trays is like $100. And I like to put them in the freezer as we fill it, because I didn't brown 60 pounds of venison at one time. I did it in really 3 batches. And, you know, you put the tray in there, freeze it. And then you just slide them in there and do it all at once. And then whoever in the family, whichever family wants to freeze dry their items, once they say, hey, I have all 7 trays, I need to use the freeze dryer. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Right.
But again, that's just an idea. But Kevin, it doesn't look appetizing right now, but when you reconstitute it, it looks exactly like it, and it tastes exactly like it. We actually were given a spiral ham last year by someone who doesn't eat ham. They were giving it that for Christmas. Froze it. Thought to myself, you know, I needed freezer space. Freeze dried the whole thing. That spiraled honey ham it feels like cardboard. Now, you can break it like cardboard. When you put hot water on it, it comes back exactly like it. So if you were to do like a ham soup, trust me, if you're hungry and your choices are eating tree bark or, you know, honey ham soup with some, you know, chopped up vegetables, you know, go out to the food plot, get a couple turnips, put them in there.
Let me take this back to a more basic need. So let's put it in this emergency situation. Okay. With that dehydrated meat that you have right there. So
and I see that question up there.
Yeah.
We have to address that. It's not dehydrated. It's freeze dried.
It's freeze dried.
Very different.
It is very different. But I'm saying it's freeze dried meat. It's all the moisture, and it takes more moisture out than just traditional dehydration can. And dehydration also, that process makes it lose some of its nutritional value. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is this. Let's talk about it in an emergency situation. You've got these bags of ground beef that are made up, and you're in an emergency situation. You can hand your kid that bag of food and a bottle of water, and they can reach in and eat that freeze-dried meat like popcorn and have a food source instantaneous. Right. Don't have to cook it. And that, you know, there are going to be situations in certain types of emergencies where you're not going to have the ability to cook. And the fact that you have that stuff cooked and ready, I mean, it may not be as, you know, the T-bone steak off of a grill, but you'll be sure happy to have it in an emergency. But here, let me tell the story. Let me tell this story, because and then we can get off food. But I want to tell you guys the freeze dryer. I will tell you how to make the perfect steak. You go get you a nice ribeye steak, and you run that thing through the freeze dryer, and you freeze dry it completely down. And you know, you put it in your Mylar bag, whatever you're going to do, and then when you're ready to use it, you take that freeze dried steak out.
And it's raw when you're doing this. The steak's raw. The steak is raw.
Now you can do. I mean, yes, definitely. I on this particular one, you can do. You need to have.
Freeze dried raw.
Yeah, you need to have some
Okay.
of your meat freeze dried raw. You can freeze dry it raw, or you can freeze dry it cooked. And obviously, for emergency situations, cook's better. But for making the best steak you'll ever eat in your life, you freeze dry this raw steak, and then you make up your water, your sauce, if you will, to reconstitute the steak. You make your put all your seasonings in it. Let your water set overnight with the seasons in it. And then you drop that steak over into it and let it sit in there for like a half a day. It will suck that water back into that steak, but it's with all of the seasons. It literally goes through every pore of every cell in that steak. It pulls that seasoning through it. And then you go throw that deal on the grill. And if that's not the best steak you'll ever eat, I'm going to tell you,
sounds good.
Something's wrong with you.
Sounds good.
It's like
man, think about that in an emergency. Like if things are going like that, it's again morale, right? It comes back down to, you want to give yourself every opportunity possible. And, before we go off the freeze dried thing, like this is, you asked about Mylar bags.
Let me leave you here by yourself for just a minute.
Okay. So he asked about Mylar bags, and Mylar bags work great, and they're like the metal looking bags. But another reason I did this is like a vanity thing, right? Having ground venison is a blessing. It is very nice to have. And I have a goal this year to get a lot more venison to put in these this year to put up. But then my goal is to have like maybe some venison, even chopped, deer steaks, and then maybe some noodles, maybe some bouillon cube, something where it's all freeze dried, and then you just have to pour hot water in there. You basically have a stew in a can. So anyway, that was kind of my idea there. And I think that just, Tony, that makes me want to freeze dry or just make Anthony, you will love it. I'm telling you, it's people that say it tastes exactly the same, I disagree. There is a difference, but it's not off-putting, and it's not like you're like, this stuff's just going to get thrown away. It still tastes good. It's just you have to kind of like you learn with it. That's why, that's why it takes time, and community is a big deal. There's a couple channels on YouTube about freeze drying, and if you guys want me to, if you guys want to see me do some freeze dry videos, I'm happy to do it. I just don't know how to be received. I think it'd be fun to do and just kind of talk through the process. But like strawberries, you'd never reconstitute those. You just eat them like they are, and they're delicious. So there's some things you just go with. And Buddy said, have I ever made homemade Spam and canned? I have not. Have you? Isn't Spam kind of like everything from the pig? And yes, Smitty, I have freeze-dried candy for the kids. And my middle daughter, Betsy, actually sold freeze-dried Skittles at school, and she made a mint. Like she made a bunch of money doing it. So people love Skittles, go from being real chewy, kind of get stuck in your teeth, to being crunchy, like almost like they just turn to like they're almost like chewing a sugar cube, but they're delicious. They're really good. Wade says freeze dried gizzards, good. No, not into that. Thomas is saying cook it. Are you saying cook it before freeze drying it, Thomas? Do any of y'all have a freeze dryer? If you do, let me know what y'all think. Like, put it in there if you do. And La Rivera, pineapple is my favorite for freeze-dried fruit. Pineapple is phenomenal in a freeze dryer. Like, a lot of that stuff is super.
Every fruit's really sweeter. Good. I had to go get a little drink of something. Lose my voice.
Yeah, freeze-dried bit of honeys. I've tried those. Those are phenomenal. Excellent. But anyway, let's get off the freeze dryer. We've kind of beat that to death.
We need to do a whole video on the freeze dryer, apparently.
I think it's really interesting. So, Bill, it took it really overnight, right? So
about 20 hours.
It was longer than that. I think it was close because I added time to it just because it's meat. So what the freeze dryer does is it's intelligent to where it knows when it's done, and it says like, do you want to add more dry time? And real quickly, dehydrating takes all the moisture out. It's almost like smoking over a fire, right? That's how they preserve meat a long time ago. Freeze drying brings it down to like negative 17 degrees. Then a vacuum pump will actually vacuum all the moisture out of it and then bring it back up to temperature. So freeze drying is very different. And dehydrated foods are probably good for a couple of years. Freeze dried are literally good for 25 plus years.
Yeah.
So it took me about 30 hours, Bill, to do all that that venison. And venison, the things you can't really freeze dry are like very fatty foods. So I've
Butter.
tried doing some, but you can't really freeze dry butter, oily stuff. The venison is a very lean meat. It's a perfect meat to put in a freeze dryer. It's also extremely healthy, so it's good for you.
Hey, before we jump off of this subject, we need to kind of also think about.
Smitty, go to Tractor Supply. They sell them, and they
right.
This is why. Not to cut you off, Tony. The reason I say buy it at Tractor Supply, I love Tractor Supply. You guys know that, but Tractor Supply. What's that?
That's where I bought mine.
Yeah, I mean, because Tractor Supply also has like the best return policies in the world. So if you have any issues, like, I say a piece of technology like that, I'd buy it there because I think it's, if you have any issues, they're going to take care of you. No questions asked on just about anything. So cleaning the freeze dryer, yes, you need to clean the inside of it. Sure. Mild soap, water, it's
really easy. It's super, super easy to maintain. Hey, but I want to talk about before we jump off of food, because like I said, that's water and food and shelter are your most important things. We're doing high tech, and I love it because it's going to let you keep that food for 25 years. However, I don't think we should just dismiss the old ways of canning, because it's cost effective. And you can do it without electricity. If you've got a wood burning stove, you can can. So it's still
canning meat does make me nervous, though. And I'm just being completely honest. There's probably a lot of folks here, yourself included, Tony,
we can't
have the experience. I know you have the experience, but that Holly's grandmother would can meat, vegetables, everything, and she passed away. And I'm telling you, there is an absolute wealth of knowledge being lost. Every time we lose someone in that generation, and please, if you all have that,
you need to put a canning book in on your Amazon page.
Yeah, I do. If anyone has a good book on canning, and I'm not trying to hijack this, Tony, because this is your point, but you're exactly right. But canning can be dangerous.
Sure.
But if you know what you're doing, you're right. It's low tech, just some jars and a fire.
And once you do it, I mean, I've done canning. I've been around canning my whole entire life, and now I can. Literally, when I retired out of the Army, I was like, I got my mom to come over, like, teach me to can, and she's done it for years. And so, once you know the basics, you got to be smart enough not to blow yourself up. I mean, that's it.
Oh, Walter White.
yeah. So that definitely, it can be dangerous not only through the, if you don't do it right, you can get sick, but also you got to understand the canning process so you don't actually burn yourself. So let's move on to our next one. What is our are you gonna go shelter or what?
Well, I think shelter is I don't think we really need to get into. I think that I don't have any props, Tony. I think that shelter. This is a couple things I'll say about shelter. Okay, I think everyone that I think that everyone on this live stream has a vehicle, right? And whether it's old, new, whatever it is. So do yourself a favor, go to Wally World, go to Amazon, go get yourself a decent, don't get the garbage, but get yourself a decent sleeping bag. Get some emergency blankets. I have them in the Amazon store. They're just like those,
Can I show Amazon store now?
Yeah. The silver kind of blankets to keep, if someone's in shock, if you need to get warm in an emergency. A couple of years ago, I remember reading that in Atlanta, there was like a quarter of an inch of ice, and people were stranded on the interstate overnight. No food, no water, freezing to death in their cars. And you just think to yourself, how can this happen in the United States of America? It makes no sense. So, in your car, that's your shelter. It's with you pretty much everywhere you go. Put a sleeping bag in there, put some emergency blankets in there. And then a couple of other things that are on here that you see. One is a Lodge skillet. We're talking about low tech. Man, for $20, that Lodge skillet is going to be with you and your family the rest of your life. And I
cook on a Lodge every day.
We cooked on one last night. Yeah, I mean, all the time. They're fantastic. And if you're intimidated of the seasoning, I would just say, don't be.
You learn it. It's easy.
You do. And then when it comes to shelter, to me, shelter also comes with warmth. So I have a lot of different things on here. One is the packet of Fatwood. that's at the very top. I use that all the time. If I'm ever building a campfire or something, it's so much less stressful. And that one box will last me like 4 years.
Sure.
And fat wood is just, you just throw it in there and it will start every fire. Like you don't have to worry about it not starting.
Wool blanket.
And then, wool blanket, Army Navy stores, great place to go.
Yeah.
But then when you think about, again, fire, it is so silly that we don't have like lighters like that.
Right here.
That one box of lighters, Bic makes them too. If you want to go quality, you have plenty of money, and that's not a concern. Buy the big bulk pack of Bic lighters. They're much better quality. But these solar lights, 1 out of every 10 are junk. But you're talking about, what is that, 100 lighters for $22.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys. Like, you should have a lighter.
Odds are at least probably 3/4 of them going to work.
Yeah, and I mean, clearly I don't smoke or anything like that, but I mean, they're handy. I have them in my barns. Like, if you ever have your chainsaw won't start, pull a spark plug out, rub a little sandpaper on your spark plug, run a little bit of or really not just chainsaws, anything. Put that lighter over there, burn the gas off, put it back in. It usually starts right up. They're handy in a shop. I would have as many lighters as you possibly can. And then, I have a multi-tool in here, a SOG multi-tool. That Mora knife is $16. It's a fantastic knife for $16. When it comes to shelter, I think that comes back down to light. And speaking of knives, I wanted to talk about. Can I talk about something real quick? And I want you to talk next about security, because your freedom thrower skills are a little better than mine. But a friend of mine gave me this knife in Kentucky, and this has quickly become my favorite knife. I actually love this thing. It is so comfortable. This is a Columbia River. What is it? Columbia River knife and tool. And this knife is insanely sharp. It is so well made. It's so ergonomic. It's, I just love this thing. Again, I don't have anything to sell. I think it's like $40-$50. So it's a quality knife. And if you have someone that you want to buy a gift for, or you want to get one for yourself, this is a fantastic knife. It's also kind of a classy looking knife, so you can feel good about carrying it. Knives are huge. I
want to share that again right there. In my opinion, that is the absolute, out of every knife that you've shown, this is the one to have.
100%. I mean, it should be.
If you can go with a Gerber or a Leatherman, if you want to go with but I mean, to be honest with you, these right here are really high quality for the price point. And I wear one daily.
Yeah. I always have a knife on me, always. And now I like these because they're not as heavy, and if I'm bouncing around, they're not as obvious. They're a little bit more, subdued, I guess you'd say. But every one of my side-by-sides and my tractors have some sort of a knife or multi-tool on it. You can buy multi-tools pretty cheap. You can buy, a cheap $10 multi-tool if you're going to have them everywhere just to have one.
Yeah.
And I mean, oh yeah. And I've taken them before where I need a blunt object and I'm just bang on something, bang on the pins to get them out of the tractor. And, that's.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're going to have a tractor, man, I love my multi-tool. I started carrying a Leatherman or a Gerber when I was deployed. And since then I've always carried. I mean, I do use a smaller Leatherman now because it's a little thinner and easier to carry on my waist. But I love a Leatherman or a Gerber as far as like a multi-tool. But
I'll tell you, a Leatherman Micro. I don't know if you've ever seen those. They're fantastic. It's very small, compact. The scissors are insanely sharp, and it's the kind of thing where, again, I just use those things all the time. And I had one other thing that I was going to share with you guys, which is kind of random. Like I have the EDC. We talked about a knife. We talked about a flashlight. Tony's going to talk about. We'll both talk about it, but I'm going to let Tony kind of run the show on that. But something like this is a non-lethal way to protect yourself.
Yeah, little spray. Not only for people, but for
dogs, coyotes,
bears, where you're at.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, show them the power supply one more time, and let me.
Well, before we close out on this, though, I just want to say my kids are young. They're not old enough to be carrying firearms. They don't need to be carrying knives because they're not trained with them. when they go for walks, this has a little belt clip, or they go work out, or they're in a place where I feel like they need to have some way of protecting themselves. They each have their own pepper spray that they can take, which is a non-lethal. And also, if you do carry, concealed carry, I've been told by law enforcement that in many cases, if you were ever, God forbid you ever have to use it, they will ask, did you have some sort of non-lethal way of protecting yourself before going from 0 to 100? So this, I just think
they're my non-lethals.
That's right. No, those are the lethals, brother.
Yeah.
All right, let's give this thing away. We've been here for a while. So again, this is a Massimo Electric. What is this thing called? The MPS
300 watt output.
Yep.
It's a lot of cell phone charging at the same time and some lights.
I plug my MacBook into this thing. I mean, it's fantastic. Even like the little handles rubberized, which I like.
All right. Last call. You got to type in hashtag be prepared. If you look right here where Kevin just put that up there. Be prepared. Hashtag be prepared. If you haven't put your name in there or be prepared, you're not going to get drawn. So we're getting ready to draw. Let me look here. Right now it shows that start collecting. We're going to see real quick how many people.
If you all enjoy this kind of stuff, let us know in the comments. I know we like talking about homesteads and tractors and side by sides and all kinds of things just outdoors. But if you guys do enjoy this kind of stuff, give us that feedback. And if you're like, hey, we're kind of over this, tell us. Hey, Tony, Joe, you guys have gone off the deep end. Amanda and Jim, you all may have missed it. This is it's a power supply. So this is like a 300 watt power supply. So you have two 110 outlets, two USBs and a USB-C, and you also have a 12 volt you can hook stuff into. So it won't power your fridge, but it'll charge a lot of stuff. And we talked earlier about these rechargeable batteries. So if you're recharging that thing with the solar panel, then you can recharge your batteries, and then you can make your lights work.
Right.
All my trail cameras are blowing me up saying that pictures.
Okay, we've only got 22 people. We got 49 people in here, and only 22 entries have typed in hashtag be prepared. And I know at one time we had like 60 people watching. So now we're gonna give this away. You had to watch all this time. You got to be here to get it.
Well, I think we've sold 2 freeze jars so far in this video.
Well,
Too bad we don't get some kind of,
Yeah, we don't get nothing off of it, but I really love this.
Harvest Right's great. They do make a great product. Faith-based companies as well.
Let's get our share page up here.
Thank you, Anthony. I appreciate you saying that.
Okay, here we go. I think a lot of our viewers are preppers. I think if you're a homesteader, you're kind of almost required to be a prepper. Why else would you be a homesteader?
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
okay, here we go.
Sometimes it's not about preparing yourself; it's about helping your neighbors.
Right. Last call. Here we go.
But he said the Joe and Tony Superstore. If only we made some money off doing it, but man, we're having a ball.
Yeah.
Anthony Beverly.
Anthony Beverly. All right.
All right.
We need you to go ahead and click in here and say you're here. Because last time we did this, they didn't know they won. And I forgot to say, hey, say that you're here.
Here.
Right,
all right.
There he is.
All right. So Anthony, here's the thing. This is going to be sent to you from Massimo. I don't have it to ship to you. So email me at joe@joethefarmer.com. Let me know your information, and I'll give that to the folks at Massimo. And it may be there in 2 days. It may be there in 2 weeks. I don't know how quickly they're going to send that out. I kind of, like I said, just sprung it on them. So we will make sure you get one, and you get it as quickly as possible. So that's exciting. Maybe I'll see if they'll do one next week too. What do you think? You think they would?
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Tony's checked out. Your blood pressure down? You hungry?
No, man. I'm having to push buttons over here. It's a one-track mind. Remember we talked about this earlier? I'm a one-track mind.
Did.
So I'm pulled my list up here, and I went ahead and wrote down 10 things that I think of. And obviously, me and Joe are going to be pretty close on what we think. Obviously, food, water, shelter, that's your first thing. Shelter, I would like to talk about just a little bit more. Is shelters, in emergencies, you got to think about it. It can be as little as a poncho and a sleeping bag and the clothes that's on your back. That's literally, is the clothes that are on your back are shelter. So, you can multi-layer clothing in cold situations. So you think about shelter that way. First aid. We were talking with, I think Wayne Lee was in here earlier talking about, he's diabetic. So if you know you're diabetic and you have to have insulin, you're thinking about prepping, you need to have 30 days supply at minimum, if not 90-day supply of your medicine, because you just don't know. Like those guys that are, for example, what happens if you only had 5 days supply and that hurricane hit in North Carolina, and there are literally no roads for them to get out. And I'm talking they're 30 miles. It's not even wagon trails any longer. The roads are just literally gone. And there's no way to get out. Well, if you only got 5 days of insulin, what gives? You're setting yourself up for failure. We talked about backup power. In fire starting, we kind of glazed over fire. Fire is going to be a big deal. So definitely have a way to start fire. I would have everything from lighters all the way down to fire starters, So definitely don't.
There's actually there's like a $5 thing on that website. Let me see what it is. I have it. It's a 5-in-1 plastic survival whistle. And I actually have some of these things, and it has a compass. It has a place to keep matches. It has a whistle, which is a great way for people to actually find you and hear you. But yeah, have a lighter, have matches. I actually have some fat wood wrapped up in my, kind of my go bag. I don't believe in bug out bag. I think it's kind of silly. Like I'm not bugging out to anywhere, but I have a bag.
I think a bug out bag is good to have as long as you have a place to go to.
Yeah. And I think what I mean by that,
somebody don't understand what a bug out bag is. It's a bag to get and go somewhere with and have something along the way. But it's not.
For me, it's a road trip bag. Like if I go on a road trip.
Really what it is. Road trip bag.
Right.
It's not a permanent. You're not going to live out of that bag. A lot of people think, hey, I'm getting my bug out bag. I'm going to go out in the woods and survive. No, you're not. You're not going to survive by yourself. It's not going to happen. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get, you twist your ankle or get a cut, get infected. It's almost next to impossible for a single person to survive in the woods by themselves, much less a man trying to support his entire family. Yeah. Probably be easier actually, because your family's going to help.
Our buddy from Peterson Farms is right. Tourniquets. We didn't think about that.
Yeah, tourniquets. Yeah, first aid tourniquets. These are things that like with my military background, it's just beat into us. We all have our med kits and the tourniquet's just part of it. You just don't even think about it because it. And I don't want to think about war, but just you slip and fall on your knife,
right?
It could happen. So you might need that.
The guy was a bow hunter, and he had an arrow in his bow, and he tripped and fell, and he was using fixed blade broadheads, and it severed his. I don't remember what artery it was, but if he didn't have a tourniquet, he would have bled out and died.
Yeah, so it made my always keep a belt on. A lot of people have a belt because that's the instant tourniquet. That's the old fashioned tourniquet is a belt.
So before we get too far, do you mind? I'm sorry. Go down your list, and then I just want to make sure we have enough time for you to talk a little bit about security.
That's number 10 on my list. Tools and equipment we talked about. I tell you something to have around your house. If you look over here behind me, there's 2 antique axes. If you have to go through something really bad, like say a storm knocks out power and it's cloudy for weeks and your solar's not working, you don't have a lot of power, you're going to need a heat source. I mean, an axe is not only good for splitting wood, building things. It's a hammer, somewhat of a self-defense tool. So an axe is good to have. Emergency communications. And again, we talked about like, having a ham radio. A lot of people will get these ham radios, and you can buy these. Again, they're illegal to use unless you are licensed to use them. And they'll buy them and just throw them in the drawer and say, well, I'll use them when they're kind of complicated. So you need to, watch some YouTube videos on ham radios. The old radio that tells you the weather, what's coming. Because, what happened, like your good example, Hurricane Katrina hit, and like 7-8 days later, Hurricane Rita hit right behind it. Those people that were without power, they may not even know that another hurricane's coming.
Yeah, it's a good point. So, those hand crank weather radios.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lighting, you've talked about that. I think lighting plays such a powerful role in morale. Not only is it useful in just doing things at night, but it is your family. It's going to play a very powerful role in morale. Just being deployed, several times, and you come into a nice lighted facility, and you're used to being like walking around in the dark, and you got tents and whatnot, and you come into a lighted facility, it changes your morale. So the food is another morale thing. So the military would always try to have a dining facility that was well lit, and also had good food, because that is a key for morale. And then I think you wanted me to talk about protection and self-defense.
Yeah, I think that
like defending your homestead.
First of all, it's popular. We all love talking about pew pews. We know that. There's nothing cooler than some lead slingers. And
freedom flingers.
Freedom flingers. I think that you and I actually had a great conversation one time, and this had nothing to do with this pot. We were just talking, and I'm by no means trying to be disrespectful to people who love firearms, because, like, listen, this is America. People die for our rights, and we have every bit of right to own them. But when you think about some things like sanitation, like that's what's going to be.
Oh yeah, that's what's going to be the big deal.
Not marauders in the night. It's going to be not properly heating and eating well and purifying your water and hydrating. Like, it's the simple stuff we've already talked about, but you do need to secure yourself and the things that you own and protect your family. So
we still got 44 diehards in here that are listening to this, and I think this is probably one of the most important things we're going to talk about right now.
Well, Amanda and Jim Kohler said, how long will this episode be? And I'm not sure if that's because they've had enough of us or they want more. maybe somewhere.
We're just having a good time, to be honest with you. I don't want to watch the debate. I know there's a debate on right now, and I definitely don't want to watch that. But I think this is a really important thing. I think you need to get an understanding of security, but more so, what happens when your house's sewer quits working? People don't realize this, but in the military, the thing that kills most militaries is not the enemy. It is up until modern times, the thing that killed most militaries were disease. They would put 50,000 people together in an unprepared situation, and everybody's pooping, and sometimes they're pooping upstream and downstream, and you depend on where you're at in the stream, how it goes for you. So you got to think about that kind of stuff in an emergency. What happens when your toilet stops working? You need to have a place set up, designated to go to the bathroom away from your water source and downstream from your water source. And that's going to be better for you all the way around. And that's something that I think is overlooked. It's very well, in the military, that's just taught. It's from the very beginning, the leadership schools, it's, how you set up a bivouac site. And the bivouac site is where you move a whole entire group of people into one out in the woods, and you set up basically a camp, if you will. And we think about things like, obviously, defensive perimeters, but you also, more importantly, anything is, where's the pooper going to go?
Right.
Yeah. Where are we going to dig our cat holes at? Because that's what makes people sick. And once dysentery gets inside your family, and in my case, in the military, it will put you, it'll put you out. Just imagine having an emergency and then having dysentery on top of that. It's an impossible, it's an impossible way to be. You don't want to do that. So you got to think about those things too. And so I think we're going to have another video about this, like about our homesteads, what we're looking for when you want to go buy a homestead. We're talking about doing that in another show coming up. Yeah, good shovel. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So are we not going to talk about freedom flingers? I thought we were.
Yeah, we can talk about freedom flingers. So I want to talk about this.
If everyone has time.
Yeah. So I would like to say this about you need a form of self-defense, because there are going to be bad actors.
Right.
They are going to be bad actors, and you can't do it by yourself. So many people it's kind of the bug out bag mentality. It's not going to work. You have to go somewhere where you have a community that you can trust. Like where we bought our land, we are in amongst a good group of good people, and we all understand that if something did terribly bad happen, that as the community, we're going to have to come together, because there is no one that can stay awake 24 hours a day. You're going to have to delegate. Each household is going to have to provide security for their area. And I'll tell you a good example is Hurricane Katrina. I went down to a Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Rita. I went down on a mission trip. Let me tell you what, there were people that were randomly walking through neighborhoods doing bad things. And that's where it doesn't have to be like what we call a shift or electromagnetic pulse or anything like that. It can just be a bad storm, an earthquake. There's a flood, and then people get desperate. And then there's also those people out there that are going to take advantage of those situations. And there are mean people in this world, and I've seen it firsthand. So definitely, you have to have.
How long do you think it takes for, you use Katrina as an example, if you have a situation like a natural disaster, whatever it may be, because again, we're not saying aliens are coming down the spaceship, right? We're saying like things happen, right? And they have happened. We've seen that. How long do you think, in your experience in the military, of like going into Afghanistan or some other place where there's a catalyst that changes everything, and how long does it go from like civilized to immediately like your family's on lockdown and you're just 24/7 protection mode?
3 days.
Does it gradually happen, or
3 days?
3 days, really that short?
Yeah. Most of most populated civilized areas, especially cities, obviously in the country, you're going to have a different group of people. They're going to do a little bit better because they are already kind of off-gridders to a degree. There's still a lot of canning, and there's still a lot of food put back, and there's still a lot of food sources around. People know how to hunt, so they're going to be a little bit off. But what you're going to have is your major cities are going to have they have about 3 days supply of food in the city. So literally in 3 days, you're going to go to mass chaos. People are going to, like in our case, we're away from Nashville. People in Nashville are going to start going out. And as they go out, they're going to steal everything they can to survive, and they're going to continue to go out. So probably in my area, we're looking at probably 3 or 4 weeks before, and we have a river between us in most major cities, so we're in a pretty good place. But yeah, 3 days, and you're going to see people not be nice anymore. They're going to be nice and helpful for 3 days, and then it's going to deteriorate very fast after that.
So if you were to have, we'll just say somebody comes to you new, like next week, like we talked about, we're gonna have a conversation about, how do you really pick your homestead, right? And your homestead, I think the spirit of homesteading is like the land could sustain you. Like, listen, it's 2024, right? Like a lot of us, we have.
I want the illusion of sustainability.
Yeah, but we have a rural property because we just want to be left alone. But it's still nice to get in the car and go out and take your wife out to a nice meal, or, go to store, whatever, like to have that stimulation of also being there. But if you have to shut down, can that land sustain you? And how, we're going to talk about that. But let's just say, for instance, that someone who's watching, it just says, hey, listen, I came on this little show and it's interesting. I'm learning stuff about when I want to go out and get my own land. If you were to suggest like the top firearm someone should buy, what do you think it should be? A pistol, a rifle, a shotgun? Like what do you think should be someone's first purchase that they have for their homestead, and why?
All of them
is what Tony wants to say.
Well, you just opened a can of worms, because I'm a big 2A guy, and we don't talk about it on our channel because YouTube will censor us. But
right.
Like Buddy's got a good point. A shotgun is not a bad choice. The reason I would not go with a shotgun, my number one go-to rifle, believe it or not, would be a AR-15 chambered in 223 5.56. And here's the thinking behind that. There are other rifles that are so much better, just so much better. But there are literally billions of 5.56 rounds placed around our country by our own government and other entities. It's the most prevalent round around. You can deer hunt with it. It's not the best, but you can deer hunt with it. It's self-defense. You can squirrel hunt with it. You can reach out 300 yards, 300 meters, reasonably good with an AR-15. So that offers you some distance for defense. It's also, with a 16-inch barrel, it's pretty decent for close in. That's one of the reasons that the military uses it for. It's not the best, and again, right here is another. This is a perfect example. The rounds are cheap, so it'll allow you to stock up. Now, I've got all different kinds of guns that are chambered in specific rounds to do specific things, but an overall number one round, if it is for a rifle, is the 223 5.56, and the other round would be a 9mm pistol. Again, for the same reason, is that almost every law enforcement agency in the world, or in the United States for sure, and around the world, uses 9mm. So it's always going to be an abundance of those rounds. There are billions of those rounds laying around. So that'll be the one. You got some specialty. You got a 7 PRC. I mean, yeah, you can reload it, but until you can't reload it no more. Right. So there's way better rifles and calibers. But
I think we definitely poked a beehive.
If you don't even want an AR-15, just do a bolt action 223 5.56. American Ruger American 5.56 and 5, chambered 5.56. It's just insurance. That's all it is.
Yeah. No, we poked a beehive because we definitely got some opinions on everything. And I think that, there's an expression that says, fear the man that shoots one gun. So everyone who's leaving comments right now, you're all correct. Like whatever you're comfortable with, a shotgun is going to be. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Smitty said in the Corps they qualified at 500 yards, and that's true. But they also use a 20-inch barrel. So most of like in the Army, we used a M4, which is a 16-inch barrel, and it's not good at. I mean, yeah, you can scare the crap out of them at 500 yards, but it's not that good. There's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, Smitty, thank you for your service, man.
Yep.
Well, I think that the right answer is going to be all of them, right? You're going to want to have a sidearm.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would rather have
rifle,
any of them. But I'm just saying though, as far as if you're going to buy, you asked a specific question.
I set you up.
Yeah, if you're going to buy the very first one, and it's the only one you're going to have, rifle 5.56 223, and then a pistol 9mm, because of availability, how cheap the ammo is, so you can stock up on ammo now, and also in the future there will always be that ammo available. There are so many specialty rounds now. Like I'm a big Grendel guy, 6.5 Grendel. There's not a lot of that ammo around. There's just I can find 5.56 by the truckloads, and it's it's cheap. So.
Yeah. Peterson Farms, you're right. I thought the question was for the person who does not have a tool, yes. Or a tool yet, I think is what you're trying to say. In case you haven't noticed, Tony and I both have a little bit of ADD. So if we see a squirrel, we get excited.
Oh yeah.
But I think that's probably the fatal flaw of this show, is that we get distracted. But That's because we're passionate about it. And yes, if I was to go and purchase and start all over again and get one weapon, I don't disagree with you. AR-15 is a very, very well, it's really hard. It's hard to argue against it.
Really, I mean, a bolt action. I might even recant and say not an AR-15 and say a like an American a Ruger American in a
but if we're talking about a Homestead, like if you got 5 people coming after you,
that AR
bolt actions sure is nice to have 30 rounds to throw down range if you need to, God forbid. Yeah. But and
I think the biggest thing though is if you do have any weapon, you need to train with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It needs to be something, that you're very comfortable with. And then I love that people will say, well, 223 is not a good round to shoot a deer with. And I just kind of laugh because like I hunt deer with a bow and arrow. Do you think a 223 is not more powerful than a bow and arrow? I mean,
it's not the best round, but it is, if I'm hungry, I'm going to eat deer tonight. I promise you that.
It's a whole lot better than a muzzle loader. Man, muzzle loaders, those things that's like my kryptonite, but that's helpful. I think that 12 gauge, obviously a great round. I saw that up there. Yes, those are very inexpensive too.
It's a good, I would definitely, I do have a shotgun, obviously. And it is so I do think in-house indoors shotgun is by far the best and safest because you're not piercing walls. Right. Whereas with a 5.56 with a 62 grain green tip, you're going through 6 walls of a house before it stops. If it stops.
Yeah. Well, and I mean it's 100% like a shotgun. If you have someone break into your house in the middle of the night, let's not pretend like we're all going to be, dead on accurate and like a shotgun.
I've seen it happen both ways. Some people go ice cold, and then some people panic.
Yeah,
I've seen both. I've seen it happen in front of me both ways.
Well, it's important also. I think that we should mention if you do have firearms, which sounds like every one of us does.
Kevin said it.
Make sure you teach your kids gun safety. Don't keep it from Kevin. You're 100% right, my friend, because so I got my kids a Savage Rascal when they were probably, 3 or 4 years old. They were little, and it's a single shot 22 long rifle. We talked about muzzle awareness. It's always loaded, like drilling it into their heads. Like this isn't something cool to show your friends. It's just a tool, right? It's no different than showing I'm more scared of them holding a chainsaw than I am a rifle. It's just. Tony, did you freeze up?
No, I was just reading this comment.
Oh, okay.
So birdshot ain't going to get it done, and sheetrock ain't going to stop double alt. That's a fact, but I would not stand in front of birdshot. I'm going to tell you right now.
No, especially
probably more people have been killed by birdshot than double alt.
Yeah, especially I've got a Beretta A400 Extreme, which can shoot 3 rounds in 1 second. So it's three rounds of birdshot probably are not going to have.
But I get what he's saying. He's absolutely correct.
He is.
Double alt buck is good, but it'll go through walls too. But I'm telling you right now, if somebody's coming in your house, you just want them to stop, and they get a face full of birdshot. It's not a good day for them.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Gosh, we got a ton of topics just off of this right here. So we need to talk about like next week's show. You want to do another one of these talking about like if you're going to buy a homestead, and you're thinking about prepping, what you should look for?
Well, I think that, and I don't even know that. You all tell us in the comments. We're doing this really with you guys. This is like we said before, it's like a campfire chat. If this is something you guys are interested in talking about,
there you go.
Let's keep talking about it.
Come through there with a chainsaw. Well, it's relevant right now. Look, the world is a little bit shook up right now. And then on top, we think that the wars over there are not going to affect us over here, and that's not necessarily the case. We hope
no, it's not. That's not the case. And I think that it is timely, and I think it's also I think it's just important for us all as, as people that either own or aspire to own land, to communicate with one another about, like, what are you doing that makes you successful? Like, that's why I geek out about tools. I think that, and I've said
Yeah.
this before, if someone says, what's my channel about? It's the celebration of the tools and machines that have made, my family owning a piece of property so much more enjoyable. Like, the work gets done faster, and with less abuse of your body. All of these tools we're talking about, like this little, this is what I said, $15 to $3.25. Like, this is $3.25, and it can give my family light in an emergency. Like, that's people say they can't afford to put things back, and they can't afford to kind of get these things. I'm not saying go buy all this stuff at once, but like, start making these preparations so that your family is prepared. Go get one of those $5 blue tubs or totes like you talked about, and man, just go get some of this stuff. And when the lights go out, you have a plan. Like, I think a lot of this just comes back down to having a plan. And next week, I'd love to talk about, what are the things you want to look for on your homestead to be more self-sufficient. And I guess we could always say, if the whatever hits the fan,
the shift.
Okay. Yeah. If things went bad, what are the things you want to have on your property? I mean, right off the bat, I mean, you want to have some water, you want to have some cover, you want to have some distance from the road. You mentioned,
have so important for that to reiterate the fact that, some of us think short term. I got a go bag. I'm so much against the go bag. You got to have somewhere to go to, because you're not going to make it on your own. And, imagine you and your wife and, kids leaving Nashville to come out to your farm. And, if God forbid you get hurt along the way. So now they're picking up the slack. Got to have somewhere to go to, because you need a base of operation. And that's why I say it needs to be like planned out in the future. Like, our neighbors talk. We have all talked at our farm, around our farm. We all kind of know what's going to happen if something was to happen. We're going to be okay, because we're going to work together as a team, and we have water, food, and security and shelter. So we're good to go.
Yeah, the thing that I don't usually, which may surprise some folks, the thing I don't really have a lot of patience for is when people are like, man, I'll just start, people come try to take my stuff, I'm just going to kill everybody. I'm like, man, that's not God's love. That's not, that's not caring and loving your neighbor. That's not doing the right thing. As you're doing these kinds of things, I think it's important.
We need to let, we've been kind of, I'm jaded to the understanding that I know there are mean people in this world. Seen it.
No, you're right. No, listen.
But
when it comes between,
we still need to be the light.
100%. We need to be the light, and we need to, if your neighbors who come and they're hungry, feed them. If you have food, like if you have some extra clothes, you're not going to use them, don't just put them in a box and plate. Like help others, because if we're not doing that and that spirit's gone, then what's the point of sticking around anyway? But
listen, if you come to my house, I'm going to feed you, but bring work gloves and boots. I'm just saying.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a zero tolerance policy.
Yeah.
If I'm the law, we're not putting up with any nonsense. So
that's right. So,
it's good fences make good neighbors, as they say. And I just, there's such a fine line, and I pray that none of us really have to find that line. But as we learn these things and we learn about our homesteads and the properties, like, yeah, who's your handyman? You were exactly right, my friend. First prep, the Bible, man. Like that's
it. Get your heart right.
Yeah,
I want to. God gives us good sense. We know which acorn. If an acorn falls from the oak tree, it's an oak tree. So, but the fact of the matter is there are some mean people in this world, and every situation. I'm promising you right now, there's a whole bunch of people in North Carolina right now that are wishing they had watched this live stream 2 weeks ago and had acted on it before what they're going through right now. There's really literally bad stuff happening in those areas right now because people are not prepared. And when people are not prepared and it goes south, they get desperate and morality leaves.
Yeah. Agreed. And I posted once. I'm going to post it again. Again, I'm not trying to make money off this stuff. I really don't care. Just to show you guys some of the stuff we've talked about, where it is in that store. We have an Amazon. So it has some of the tools and stuff we like. You guys, if you got an extra $100 this week or next week or sometime soon, the holidays are coming up. If you want to ask for some things, I'm not trying to spend your money, because nothing makes people angrier on social media than trying to spend other people's money. So I'm not trying to do that. But, there's some things in here. If you find a tool or something that you think is helpful, hop in there. And if you guys,
I dropped the freedom pill.
Glad it didn't go pop.
I dropped the freedom pill.
That's right. If you all have things that you like that we haven't mentioned that you think is helpful, that has been a game changer to you, please send it to us. You can email to me, email to Tony, and maybe we'll talk about some of that stuff in the future, and we'll even add it to some of the Amazon stores and stuff that we have. Because again, I like the Amazon thing, because it's an aggregator, right? It's very simple to go in there, click, and then it comes to the house. You put it aside, and you just know that you've taken one step forward. So
I just want to answer. I know we're getting ready to get off here, but I want to answer that little question right there, because some people don't watch the news. So Amanda and Jim, what's going on in North Carolina and East Tennessee and North Georgia was that hurricane come through and dumped like 2 foot of rain in just a matter of hours. And all these people that lived up in these hollows and in the mountains, they were literally okay. There are a lot of people that are missing that live down in the valleys. They got washed away. All their houses are washed away. But the thing that's going to really devastate this area for the longest time is the actual roads. I mean, we're talking about not just a little piece of the road. The whole entire road is gone. And we're talking of literally hundreds of miles of roads have been destroyed. Bridges have been removed. There is literally, the only way to get back into there now is on horse or literally a helicopter. That's it. That's the two choices, or by foot. That's what they are. So there's people that were up in those mountains living their life at their house, and they have 5 days of gas for their generator, and now they don't have water and they don't have food, and it's getting ugly, and people are going to do bad things. That's just the way the world works.
Right.
So, anyway,
I'm excited. I hope you all are excited. Do me a favor this week, if you all will. If you are not subscribed to my channel or Tony's, we'd love to have you subscribe to our channels. And also, if you don't mind seeing if maybe you want to invite a guest next week, if you have a friend that is into this kind of stuff, you think they may enjoy it, let's see if we may get the community a little bit bigger. And I will, my commitment to you guys is I'll see if I can't ask Massimo if they'd be willing to donate another one of these little power stations, because they are so cool. I'm trying to use them all the time. So maybe they would do that. And Tony's going to give away a couple of his Freedom Throwers next week. Right?
No, we're not doing that. But
I don't know about that. Hold on.
This is the subject I was looking at for next week. Purchasing land for self-sufficient living or homesteading is crucial to consider several factors.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, I know. That's just an ideal. We'll throw it out there. You guys can go in the comment section, and I think it's something we need to think about is if you're in the market for a homestead, what do you need to look for if you're wanting to be able to go there and survive long term without assistance?
Yeah, and we could even make that morph into ways that you can adapt your current homestead to be maybe a little bit better. Holly and I, just a quick example was ATF has entered the chat. That's fine. Neither one of us are breaking any laws.
No, absolutely.
I'll tell you, planting fruit trees, just taking those incremental steps. If, we have all this water, but how do we feed ourselves? So I love the idea of, we planted 30 fruit trees. We're going to plant some nut trees. We have all that Balmalite, what is it? The auger that I have for my skid steer, man, I could plant 1,000 trees in one day, and I might, just to get more cover. Like Tony, you have tons of tree cover. I have very little. We're hay fields. Right. So, even
I have fire source. That's really important. We have wood source for fire. I'm telling you, right. in a shift event, fire is going to be important.
Yeah. Yeah. And before we close out, I was going to say too, one adjustment that I made to our property 2 years ago, we had a really bad ice storm, and I don't know if anyone remembers that in Tennessee, but it knocked power out for about a week. Yeah. So shortly after that, I had a wood stove installed, and it cost me about $2,000, which is a lot of money. But when your family's cold it's not a lot of money.
Right.
So I did that
All
in
right.
the summer, and here we are. So thank you all so much.
Go to bed. It's past this old man's bedtime.
Y'all, thank you for staying with us so late tonight.
I think it's interesting.
It is interesting. And listen, we're going to have fun next week. And then if there's other topics you think that Tony and I want to, we should tackle and give our novice opinions on, let us know. Thank you all so much for watching.
I learned as much from these guys as,
I did too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Appreciate y'all.
Listen, have a great night. God bless.
God bless y'all. See you soon.